Good morning. My name is Levon Esibov, and I'm a group program manager in the information protection team in Office 365. I've been with Microsoft for the last 17 years, working in product teams. I was on Active Directory V1, V2, V3 teams, on DNS team, and Windows Security. My team built BitLocker. I've been in SQL Azure, and for the last 3.5 years, I've been in the information protection team focusing on Exchange Online protection. I have to tell you that this is one of the most exciting times personally for me and for the team, and I see the atmosphere in our product team compare literally for the last 17 years. Really exciting because we're continuously challenged with continuous rapid growth of cloud. It's been a fascinating journey over the last number of years, and it's really challenging and keeps us on our toes because the attacks continue to evolve. And from my personal experience with majority of products, when we build a product on the engineering team, on the product team, we know what customers want. We are striving to satisfy the demand, and that's pretty much it, the two main players, the customers and us. But in this particular world, there's a major third party, the attackers. And they don't ask what we want or what customers want, but we have to adjust our protection to protect customers and ourselves against this evolving threat. So that's a unique part of this job. And as I said, very exciting. Let me see if clicker is working. Yes, it is. So what do we observe? We observe continuously evolving external threats. They could be very dangerous. They could be well-sponsored. Often it's governmental-sponsored or organized crime-sponsored, where people have serious investments into circumventing, working around our defenses. It could go from the spectrum of very targeted, very expensive attacks to annoying bulk mail or annoying spam. And the level of implications or the impact of the attacks vary significantly. But it is our job in Exchange Online protection to protect our customers, our users, and empower administrators from the protecting against benign spam versus serious malware and phishing type of attacks on broad spectrum like that. Also, Exchange Online protection provides capability to protect you against the loss of sensitive data. You may have heard about the data loss prevention technology in the previous sessions, and that is part of Exchange Online protection offering. One thing I do want to emphasize that it is core to our approach to not put at odds productivity of users and security of the organization, but rather try to fulfill the needs of both sides of the equation. And I'll spend a little bit more time on that when we talk about data loss prevention. One thing I do want to call out is when we talk about Exchange Online protection, this is the protection that we provide for all mailboxes in Office 365 in Exchange Online. But not everybody knows that this is a long-standing service that has been offered, and we continue offering it for on-premise customers, for those who have mailboxes on premises. I'm not only talking about the hybrid environment when you already have some mailboxes in the cloud and some mailboxes still sit on-prem. But I'm talking about the customers, and we have thousands and thousands of large customers in that segment, where they adopted our service to do the filtering in the cloud before the mail is arriving to their on-premises Exchange service or even Lotus Notes or what have you, both for inbound and outbound traffic. So I just want you to know that. And also I'll call out, I was talking to a couple of customers at this event at Ignite a couple of days ago, and we were talking about how they can use us to protect their on-premise deployments. And they said, how much it's going to cost us? And I asked, do you have eCal, Enterprise Cal? They said, yes. I said, it doesn't cost you anything. It's included there. And people simply didn't know. So, but I wanted you to know. This clicker is going to be a challenge for me. So what do? If we look at the different segments of the capabilities that we provide, we start with stopping virus, malware overall. And for years, our approach has been to use multiple antivirus engines. And they include not only the ones from Microsoft, but also from very well-known and respected companies in the world. For anti-spam protection, we have the team of spam analysts, as well as machine learning and machine-based protection technology that is continuously evolving. That's the aspect of me mentioning earlier, that it is a continuously evolving field, and we have to stay on the treadmill, if you will, to keep fighting those new attacks. The two new things that we just announced earlier during Ignite, and we had a blog earlier last month, is safe attachments and safe links. I'm truly excited about us entering this space of advanced threat protection. And I'm going to spend more time talking about how it works, as well as show the demo on advanced threat protection that now helps our customers to defend against zero-day attacks, as well as against the malicious URLs. More about that later. In terms of protecting sensitive data, there are two big chunks that we enable in Exchange Online protection. One is related to data leakage prevention, data loss prevention, and the second one is encryption that we enable there. So most of you familiar with RMS technology that was made available by Microsoft years ago. In addition to that, what we provide here is Office 365 message encryption capability that serves customers well when you have, let's say, you are in the business of banking or mortgage or medical office, where you need to send the encrypted messages to your consumers. So it's not as much B2B, but B2C, business to consumer scenario, where you can enable encryption and enforce it based on some criteria that your mail fits, for example. And I'll mention it later as well. In terms of the administrative console, we are natively integrated into Office 365 Admin Console, and you'll see that. And we provide a detailed reporting there as well. But you can think of Exchange Online protection, even though as it is a standalone product that is available for on-premise customers who have not adopted any mailboxes or SharePoint or Skype for Business in the cloud yet, it is still an integral part of Office 365. And if you're not ready to onboard to Office 365 right now with your mailboxes, for example, it could be a good alternative step to start with Exchange Online protection to get a taste of Office 365. And as you do that, the investments you make in that area, whether it's synchronization of directory or learning how to operate the admin console, it's going to pay off when you move the rest of your assets to the cloud, because we will leverage, you will leverage your learnings from operating this particular workload in Office 365, as well as you will leverage, if you configure it so, the directory information that you already pumped into the cloud. Finally, I do want to call out the enterprise class reliability of the service. First of all, I want to call out the geographically load balanced data centers, and I'm going to talk about it at the end as well. But I know how important these days, especially in post-Snowden area, the question of how do you route my traffic? Especially if those of you who've been familiar with predecessor of Exchange Online protection that was known as FOPI, Forefront Online Protection for Exchange. In those old days, we load balanced across the world. And what that meant is that if we have overloaded North American data centers, we could route traffic through Europe. There was nothing bad about it, and we leveraged the hardware around the world. But with Exchange Online protection and with changed perception in post-Snowden area, now we guarantee that the mail filtering, not only storage, but mail filtering through Exchange Online protection is done in the region where your tenant is. So if you're a North American tenant, mail will be filtered only within North America. If you're a European tenant, only within Europe. And later on, I'll show you which geographies we support today. And of course, there is sufficient failover capabilities that we built. And people ask me, they say, what happens if one of your data centers goes out? Saying there is enough capacity to sustain it within the same geography. We don't need to fail over to a different continent or to a different location. And still peculiar minds continue saying, what if the second data center goes out? Well, we still have enough capacity. And what if the third and fourth? And let's say, they say, what happens if entire Europe is out? Would you route the mail through North America? My answer is, no, we will not. But if the entire Europe is out, you have a bigger problem on your hands. And the same applies to any region. Now, queuing capabilities, Kushru mentioned in his previous session. Imagine that we're routing the mail to your on-premise environment, and then all of a sudden your host cannot accept mail, whether there is a problem with the hardware itself, whether there is certificate expiration, or what have you. We will queue that mail. We will not lose it. And what I'm very happy to share with you is that now we also provide you a heads up through the message center in Office 365, as well as through email notification to inform you that there is a queue that is building up that you need to take care of. Great. Of course, it's the Bozo test. We do not send the mail to the same mail as in your system because it would be queued as well. We would send the mail to your alternative address. We do provide 24/7 365 support, and I'll talk about it on the next slide, I think. Yes, it is on the next slide. It's better than what you think, and I'll talk about it in a second. And we do provide the dollar-backed SLAs. Now let me talk about this support capability on this advertised slide. So I'll skip the fluff about having millions and tens of millions, etc., users, and millions of customers and billions of mails. But to give you a sense, we're talking about tens of millions of messages per second going through our system as we speak. Per second. So it involves thousands of servers to process this. And we do have plenty of the capacity around the globe. But one thing where I do want to spend a couple minutes is talking about this gentleman who represents any engineer on our team. What we personally changed in our approach of running from shipping software to running a service is a very interesting evolution for Microsoft overall as well as for our team. The profound difference now is that my engineers, experts who wrote the code and who know their area, are continuously on call. Well, I'm not saying that every single person is continuously on call, but we do have a rotation that ensures that any single area, whether it's reporting, whether it's anti-malware, whether it's provisioning or transport, etc., have at least 2 experts continuously on call. And if anything happens, and usually we catch things before you, our customers, see them, because we have pretty rich monitoring and probing infrastructure that notifies us of any deviation from norm. In that case, we dispatch the page to an individual on call and his backup, and they are starting to address the issue within a few minutes. It's hard to think, frankly, of a better experts in the world to address the issue than the people who wrote it. So it's been a profound difference for us in terms of how we deliver the service, but I hope and I think that it has very positive impact on the industry as well, because it's hard to scale the number of experts across the industry who understand every nitty-gritty detail in each component. But these individuals who wrote it know it better than anybody else. Now let's talk about conceptually how the Exchange Online protection works. So the mail is sent from the internet to Exchange Online protection. It goes through filtering, and we'll talk about a little bit more details of what that involves. And then it arrives either to your Exchange Online, if you are in Office 365 already, or it arrives to your corporate network, to your Exchange servers there. Now, if you're in hybrid, those of you who were here in transport session before, that still will go through our filtering pipe in Exchange Online protection, and the mails destined to Exchange Online will reside there, and the mails that are targeted to your users who are still on-premise will be delivered on-premise. Pretty simple. And for outbound connection, it's very similar for outgoing email. From on-premise or from Exchange Online mailboxes, the mail will go through Exchange Online protection filtering and then will go out. So this is the next double click on how Exchange Online protection works. When the mail is delivered from the cloud, we inspect at the edge servers the IP information as well as envelope-based information. And based on this information, we decide which messages to stop. Believe it or not, majority of spam is stopped right there. This usually is not fairly sophisticated set of spammers who are being stopped here. These are the well-known bad IP addresses who are sending the spam. And if you're curious what portion of all mail or what portion spam constitutes of all mail that is sent these days, it's about 2/3 of all mail is spam that we need to stop, so 66% or so. 85% of that mail is stopped right here. But the further percent points are much harder to fight, and that's where the rest of the pipeline comes in. Now then, once we do the scanning on the front doors, then we go into virus scanning. And as I mentioned, there are 3 different engines that are applied to inspection of every attachment that goes through. Now, our SLA says we will apply at least 2, but dominant majority of time, it is 3 engines that are applied there. After the mail passes through virus scanning, the next step, the next clearance house, if you will, that it goes through, is it goes through the policy enforcement from well-known exchange transport rules. And if the rule is triggered, then appropriate decisions are made, and depending on your configuration, actions are taken, and you may decide to store those messages in quarantine, and then they will be delivered to quarantine. I should have mentioned on the previous bucket here in virus scanning that if we detect virus, according to administrator's decision, we can either stop the whole mail here and just block it, put it in the trash can, or we can strip out the attachment that contains virus and deliver the rest of the mail, and if you prefer, with customized text so that your end user will know what happened there. And then we go into this sophisticated meat grinder to detect spam. There are numerous different techniques that are applied to spam message, and they are continuously changing. Some of them are human written. Many of them are machine driven. And the technology that we build is analyzing in real time what is happening in terms of the mail flow that we observe. We use technologies like fingerprinting, etc., to identify growing clusters, to correlate them with submissions that we're getting from our customers, from you, from your users, when they submit the false positives and false negatives. And that feed of data goes into our machine-based learning and response, as well as goes to our spam analysts, who are continuously analyzing submissions that we get. In addition to this, we are using some other samples of known bad mail that is emerging. We get those from subscribing to third-party providers of bad mail, as well as we learn about the structure of the mail, etc., based on this front edge-based blocking, because we know that this area is, this set of servers are stopping bad mail. So we take some samples of those bad mail to analyze what is happening in the spammers community. This aspect is very important. As I should have said that after the message clears through the spam protection layer, then the message is delivered to your corporate network, to your Exchange service on-prem, or to Exchange Online, to Office 365. We're not perfect. Sometimes false positives happen, sometimes false negatives happen, and it is extremely important for us to get the signal. More signal we get from you, better we can fine-tune the protection for you and your users. So this is similar diagram, but it outlines the outbound filtering. You can say, why is it so important to do outbound filtering? Well, for multiple reasons. First of all, you don't want your sensitive information to leak. And that's what we enforce right here. Second, we are striving to be good citizens of this industry and catch malware and spam when it goes out. But the most important part, you can say most focused on ourselves, is to ensure that other providers of the mail do not blacklist our IP addresses, do not block them. And they are monitoring us as well as we are monitoring them. So it's a significant effort, even though you can say selfish, but yes, it's selfish on behalf of all of you, to ensure that our IP addresses are not blocked when you're trying to send the mail to other providers, whether it's Yahoo or Google or what have you. Now let's walk through this pipeline as well. The mail starts either from your Exchange on-premise or Lotus Notes or any service, or from Office 365, Exchange Online. Then it goes through malware filtering, and if we detect malware, we just stop the message there. We do send notification if you configure so the service. Then we go through policy enforcement. This is where your Exchange transport rules are enforced, including data loss prevention. Then we go through spam protection. And then, depending on the score of the mail, likelihood of it being spam or good mail, we deliver it through different IP pools. And the reason to have different levels of pools here is to ensure that good, trustworthy, unsuspected mail is not delivery of that mail is not jeopardized by having more suspected mail in the pipeline. And that comes down to my previous comment about importance of preserving reputation of our own IP addresses. We do have a system so that you know if there is any signal that the reputation of any of our IP addresses, and we have a lot, starts to degrade, then the engineer on call is immediately dispatched to troubleshoot what's happening there, hopefully before any provider in the world starts to blacklist that. So where do we stop most of the spam mail? As I mentioned, on connection filtering, on the front doors, we stop about 80% of our spam, or not our spam, but spam targeted to you, to your users. About 15% is stopped based on sender and recipient information, and approximately about last 5% are stopped based on content filtering. But like in any other area, the last 5% or last mile is the most hardest. And that's where we may miss the beginning of the campaign or some very sophisticated attack that will take some time for us to catch up on. Now, how do we protect against spam? There are different levels of spam. First, let's talk about the blatant spam that is not bulk, because we should clarify that. A lot of users are treating bulk, even if they subscribe to that, as spam. Because when they subscribed, or when you left your business card in one of the fish tanks on the exposition floor here, I'm sure you'll be getting more mail from them. And I'm sure at that time you will say, why are they allowing this spam? Well, you subscribe to it. But we're not taking a position of saying you subscribe to it, so we're not going to protect you. We are giving you flexibility in terms of deciding which one of these mailing lists you treat as spam versus not. In the past, about half a year ago, I would say before December, you pretty much had one rigid control there. You were able to say, treat bulk as spam, or don't treat bulk as spam. And how to determine what's bulk, what's not, we had a list of the known senders and of known bad bulk senders, those who do not respect the rules of sending the bulk mail. Now, we significantly evolved that area of protection against bulk in the last few months. The feature became broadly available, I think, sometime in January. And what it allows you to do right now, you still need to decide whether you want to treat bulk as spam or not. But you have much more flexibility here to decide how aggressive you want the bulk senders to you want to be in protecting against the bulk. Majority of people, I'll share with you, settle around default value of 7, and it's a scale from 1 to 9, where 9 is the most disrespectful bulk senders, those who do not respect any subscribe and unsubscribe rules, and 1 are the most compliant ones, I would say, with the best reputation. But it depends on needs of your individual organization. And bulk is the area where you will always be blamed for by your organization, because it's a situation of damn if you do, damn if you don't. Some people would want to get their Groupon notifications. Others will say, why am I getting this? And you cannot scale going into individual needs of every single person. I'll jump ahead and say that we are looking at how to optimize protection beyond organizational level. We are investing into understanding the preferences of individuals, of humans, and adjusting the control there. But you, as administrators, do have an override there. You can decide that, no, nobody in my organization today should be receiving bulk that is obscene or bulk that does not oblige with the bulk community rules. In the future, we are looking, I'm not making announcements yet, but we are exploring opportunities to provide more granularity in terms of separating social notifications from subscriptions from IETF or any other respected body, etc. Yeah, enough about bulk. As for the traditional spam, as I mentioned, it's a combination of the human-based protection based on analysis done by analysts, as well as protection based on the machine capabilities. Whether it's machine learning that's analyzing different models, or whether it's near real-time response to evolving attacks that humans don't have capability to react to as quickly as machines. Now, what do we do with the mail once we determine that it is a bad mail? You have an option there by default to say deliver the suspected spam to junk mail folders of the individuals. And we see a lot of people doing that. But when we shipped our successor to FOPI, called Exchange Online Protection, we got plenty of feedback from customers saying quarantine is critical. And I was puzzled at that time. I said, why? Why do you think quarantine is critical? And I've heard 3 different reasons from administrators. One, they said, I don't want any junk in my on-premise Exchange servers, because anything that arrives there needs to be subjected to archiving and regulatory requirements, etc. So you just shield it there. I don't want to receive it. Keep it in quarantine. I buy that. The second one that was most puzzling to me personally is they said, yeah, you don't know my users. They have plenty of free time on their hands, and I don't understand that concept. And they would go and browse through junk mail just to find out maybe there is something interesting. And even though you blocked it as spam, at the end of the day, they'll still click on something, and then I have a headache of going cleaning up their mailbox or recovering their compromised credentials. The third one that puzzled me was administrators were saying that I don't want it delivered to my on-premise Exchange because it consumes the network bandwidth. And what puzzled me there is probably one view on YouTube by any of your employees consumes more network than mail delivered to on-prem. But we've heard administrators saying we need this capability, so we delivered it. And you have a decision to make when you configure it, whether you want the mail to be delivered to junk mail folder versus to quarantine. And then another evolution is we delivered capabilities in quarantine for administrators or for your help desks to go and release messages from quarantine, but you asked to enable end users to release messages from quarantine themselves. So we do provide those capabilities today. It is up to you whether you want to restrict these permissions to administrators only, or whether you want to allow your information workers, your end users, to access that information from quarantine. There is a way to go to a portal to release those messages, and I'm super excited to give you a heads up that soon, we've heard a lot of feedback on that. Soon we're going to deliver capability that allows users to preview the message in quarantine before releasing it. I know it was hard. We were providing just a sender and the subject, and users had to make an educated decision on whether they want to release that message or not. Now they soon, not there yet, but very soon, they will be able to see in quarantine preview of the message before deciding to release it. And the last thing I'll call out here is we do provide a digest email that you can configure how frequently you want them to receive. And that digest effectively tells them that this is the number of messages that were delivered to you in the last X days, or it could be 1 day, and you can click on them to release them. Digest is about the messages that were delivered to quarantine so that they can decide what to release. Okay. Anti-malware section, and I'm not talking yet about advanced threat protection. The most interesting is still to come. Let me just make sure. Okay. On anti-malware area, the configuration is pretty simple. Administrator makes a decision whether to block the entire message or delete an attachment and replace it with default text or customized text. And then administrator decides who to send notification to, if anybody at all. If you want to notify internal sender when the malware is detected, that's working, external as well. And then you can decide whether you want to get notification about those messages as well. That's as simple as it gets with anti-malware. And this is my favorite topic because this is the new capability that we just built and currently in preview, and we will make it available in June. So let me step back for a second and outline the landscape. What was happening is, and you know that as good as I do, that attacks are continuously evolving. And attackers are making a lot of money on these attacks. So what we observed over the last couple of years is how attackers adjusted their vectors, understanding that traditional AV signature-based protection takes on average about 6 hours to produce a signature. I'm not talking about Microsoft only. I'm talking about the major players in antivirus area across the world. So what happens? They start with a zero-day attack. The first person to detect it, to report it, submits the sample. The analysts in different houses, whether it's, I'm not going to go into naming third parties, but you know the major players. Those analytical houses analyze it, create a signature, validate it, and then distribute it. So on average, 6 hours the attackers have to exploit those 0 days. And we observed attacks, this is unbelievable, where they would be sending mail for 5.5 hours. Literally, they're just playing with us like cat and mouse. And then they would stop because they know that on average the signatures will be there. So what we've done, and not only us, but the industry, there is a new technique, relatively new, it was evolving over the last couple of years, to detonate the attachment, even if it doesn't trigger any signature-based protection, in a sandboxed environment and observe its behavior to make more educated decision on whether this is a bad mail or bad attachment containing zero-day exploit or not. Now, okay, is it 100% bulletproof? No. I'll be lying. Anybody will be lying if they say that it is 100% bulletproof. Every time we build a defense, with certain investments, someone can overcome it. The question is how high the bar is to overcome. That's the essence of the market, of the security space. But we build that capability, and I'll show on the next slide how it works. But an additional one, additional attack vector, also exploiting emails, is related to URLs. So the technique that we see is bad guys taking ownership of URL. Now, you can say they create new URL. You can look at the age of that new registered domain to determine how much reputation it has. It's like with credit score. When your kid goes out of college, credit score is near zero, and then they build it over time. But it's minority of the attacks that involve new domains. What attackers are doing, they're compromising sites with a decent reputation. Of course, I'm not talking about the well-known brands like Microsoft or Amazon or eBay or CNN or what have you. Those brands are and websites are pretty well protected. But I'm talking about other less protected websites and less monitored, where an attacker can compromise it, send a mail containing URLs pointing to those sites. Since the site has fairly decent reputation with us, the URL, we will let it through in our pipeline. And then a few minutes later, they will weaponize the site. What does weaponize them mean? They can put their downloadable attachment that contains zero-day exploit. Or they could turn it into a phishing site. But the mail already cleared the clearinghouse. It went through our filtering pipeline. It's too late. So what we did there is we built a capability that we called Safe Links, where now, when you subscribe to this capability, the mail will go through the pipeline, and we will rewrite the URL to point back to us, to Office 365 service, so that I will not use the word proxy. We will not route entire traffic and communication with website through us. But when your user clicks on that link, before going to the destination website, we will do the check against the latest known good and bad URLs, so that if we already detected that that site is bad, we will stop the user, and I'll show the demo on that. Let me just show graphically what I just described. So this is approach with safe attachments. Oops, sorry, wrong button. Come on, okay. So the mail arrives, it goes through the regular pipeline of doing the IP envelope-based evaluation. Then it goes through signature-based protection and blocking against known exploits. Then it goes through regular, I did not include ETR to not confuse the picture. Then it goes through anti-spam filter. And this is what would happen in the previous or in current version before ATP. The message will be delivered to your user. Now, if you subscribe to this safe attachments capability, then this safe box is representing here the sandboxed environment, where we will open this attachment in this mail, and we will inspect it. And if it passes the house, then it will be delivered to your end user. If not, then you'll tell us what to do in this case, remove the attachment or drop the entire mail. Now, there is a time delay cost that comes here in the first version of the product. And it's there with any third party that provides these capabilities today. In order to do this inspection, it is a fairly expensive resource-wise operation. And if you ask me how long of a latency would it introduce today, and I emphasize today because we're working on some capability to expedite it, but today it will take approximately 5 to 10 minutes for an individual attachment. So it's your decision. You need to decide what is more important. The average SLA across the industry, I think, is around 30 minutes. And that's the SLA that we will advertise at the beginning as well. But the early measurements show about 5 to 10. Now let me show you the similar style diagram, how safe links would work. Again, message containing URL now, not attachment but URL, will go through our regular pipeline of filtering. And then it would be delivered without advanced threat protection to the user. Now, if you do have the advanced threat protection, then here we will rewrite the URL to redirect us to redirect the call to our service here. So imagine this is our web service here. And when the user clicks on that link, it doesn't matter whether she clicks it in the next 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 months. First of all, the check will be made against this web service, and the web service will say yay or nay, and depending on that, she will be routed to her destination here. So let me switch the desk now and show you a demo of how it works. So this is a traditional Office 365 admin console. And if I go to Exchange, and then I go to Advanced Threats here. Let me increase the size so folks in the back rows will see it. Can you see it well? Okay. So let's take a look at safe attachments first. This is pre-created policy. And if I go to settings here, these are the settings effectively at your disposal. So you can decide to turn on this policy in monitoring mode first, just to see what's going to be the impact before you turn it on. So think of it as what-if mode. You can decide to simply block the message. Or you can decide to replace the attachments with the text and deliver the message to your end user. Now, what we've heard from customers, especially large ones with their security teams, they said, we want to get the sample. We want to get a sample of the bad message or bad attachment so that we can analyze it ourselves as well to do some investigations. I'm not crossing the line of why they're doing it and what they're going to do with that. But we do allow that redirect to your security group or to whoever you designate. If you specify an address, the mail will be delivered, the mail with special text alarming them that it is detected 0-day will be delivered to them. Now, some people were asking me, what happens if there is a lot of mail during peak hour and you're not keeping up with processing all of the mail in this detonation environments, sandboxed? And I told them that we have plenty of hardware that will allow us to do it. And they said, no, still not good enough. What happens if you still cannot do it and there is denial of service attack on a customer who subscribed to this? And anyway, if I don't believe that Microsoft has enough hardware, what's going to happen? Well, it's your decision what's going to happen. You can say that if you cannot scan this during the 30 minutes SLA, then either let it through or don't let it through. So you have that override, but throughout preview, I haven't seen yet any single instance when we didn't finish it on time. So one thing I do want to call out here, I think it will be very handy for you. You have a lot of flexibility in determining who to apply this policy to. You can apply it to an individual recipient. You can apply it to individual group, as it's defined in Active Directory. You can apply it to an individual domain or to entire tenant. You have complete flexibility there. Similarly, you can create exceptions here, and you can say apply to everybody but, and then introduce the similar constructs here as an exception. And it's an interesting topic as you will be evaluating who to apply it to. A lot of people start this journey of, yes, these are the new threats, I need to protect them, especially my VIPs, my CEO, my CIO, C-STAROs, think of them as VIPs. That's natural first step. But then people quickly arrive to realization that very often attacks on my enterprises are not done directly to CEO. Very often they compromise some vendor, some doesn't matter who, but not VIP in your organization. And then they work their way up. It's your call. I would be happy to learn from you on this journey when you decide how to apply this configuration, this new capabilities. But I would say that we're fairly early, and there are two different schools of thoughts. One, I need to protect everybody versus let me start with VIPs. I don't know what's the right approach from your point of view. Probably it's very special to your organizations. If I'm asked, if I'm running my organization, I probably would say protect everybody, but happy to learn there. Now, let's take a look at safe links. This is where we rewrite URLs. And I'll open the policy here. And the decisions that you're going to make here are also pretty simple. You enable this feature, we start overwriting or rewriting the URLs. You can decide, this is an important decision to make for you as administrators here. The check here indicates that you made a decision that if we believe this is a bad URL, bad site, you will not allow your users to go there. To the contrary, you can uncheck it, and then you'll leave it to discretion of your users. They still will see the same warning, but they will have an opportunity to bypass it and go to that site. You have flexibility to determine the exceptions, which URLs you do not want to overwrite. It's your call. And the feature that I am most excited about is not only the protection, but URL tracing capabilities that we build with this feature. You can say, oh, this is Big Brother watching. I look at it from a different angle, and you have the control of whether you are allowed to watch what your users click or not. You can say, what is the primary scenario where tracking user clicks is valuable? There is one scenario I hope many people will resonate with me. Probably in the past year or 2 or 3, you had to investigate who in my organization clicked on this link. One fine day, somebody comes to you and says, well, something happens, my machine is slow, you start troubleshooting, there is virus, or somebody's credentials got compromised. And it's not only your problem to address their needs, but the biggest problem you have is who else is in that position who doesn't know yet, and how do I go proactively help them? How pervasive is this problem? Is it one person or is it 50 people in my organization of thousands? Today it can take you days, weeks, maybe months to find out those victims who don't know yet. With this capability, I'll show you that if you go to URL tracing page, you can specify, for example, a particular time range, a particular user if you want recipient, or a particular URL if you want to inspect who clicked on that URL, but I'll leave untouched those right now. And if you conduct a search, if demo gods cooperate, they do, thank you, then you will get a comprehensive list of everybody who clicked on a given link if you filter it based on link. And you will know whether they were blocked from going to that link or whether they clicked on it. It's going to save. Thank you. Yeah. I resonate with you. Yeah. Yeah. When we started working on this feature, I'll tell you the internal story. When we started working on this feature, people were most excited about this additional protection capabilities. And I was the one who was not only excited about those, but I said, hey, sooner or later, some attack, whether phishing or something else, will make through anyway. I think this is what administrators would love the most. And I'm glad to see the applause here. So let me show you the user experience when they receive the mail with this overwritten URLs. So you recognize this device. And if I go to mail, I pre-sent here mail with a set of links. 2 of them are good. The last one is bad. So I want you to just get the experience that the users will see when I click on the first one on Bing. It opens literally within milliseconds, right? It doesn't take time to check with our web service for the reputation of this site. So the users will have no clue about being redirected there unless they are smart or educated enough to go and hover over that link here. If they hover their mouse over Bing or any other website here, they will see the real site that they're redirected to. And we were thinking about the trade-offs about, we taught people to check that, and now how they're going to react. We didn't find a good solution. We discussed it with a number of people in the industry, and the conclusion that we arrived to, and I will be curious to hear your feedback after the session, the conclusion we arrived to is that yes, there are educated people who check for that, but the dominant majority still don't. And it's still rewriting and checking this site will bring more good than harm. But when you enable this feature, if you have some educated users contacting you saying, hey, I see this overwritten link, doesn't sound right. Sorry, we know that it could happen, but still majority wouldn't even notice. Now let me take you to this bad link. And this is the experience that your users are going to see. So they will be stopped here, and since according to the policy that I showed you earlier, they will not be able to go through this warning to their destination site. But if you enabled so, then they will be able to click on a link that says, yeah, I don't care, bypass, I know what I'm doing. So that's the demo. Let me I think that's a good feedback. I'll take it home. Yeah, it's not brandable right now in V1.
The exceptions, can you set it to a specific domain instead of a specific URL?
Yes, the exceptions of who you apply this policy to can be placed on users basis, group basis, domain basis. So you have complete control who you enable this policy to. So let me repeat the question, and then I'll proceed with presentation. I'll leave the questions for the end. But the question was, can I not only specify which users to apply to this policy overall, but for individual domains or for individual URLs decide on who to apply to, who not? No, we don't have that level of granularity. I'd be curious if there is more demand for that after the session. But right now, you have complete flexibility in who to enable safe links to, based on users, groups, domains, and entire tenant level, who not to enable to, exceptions. You have the exceptions list on which URLs to not override, but we don't have the permutation of both of those. And if this is a common case scenario, talk to me after the session. So managing the policies, remember in that diagram where I showed you the different stages of filtering? Between the malware antivirus filtering and spam filtering, there was exchange transport rule filtering. This exchange transport rules that are configured in Exchange Online Protection are very familiar to you from your Exchange days. And you can trigger those rules based on different conditions, including on attachment scanning, on matching IP addresses, on whether it's executable or not attachment. Message containing sensitive information is alluding here to data loss prevention, where you can apply certain rules to detect the messages containing constructs like credit cards, social security numbers, as well as dozens and dozens and dozens of the constructs representing numerous countries, not only US. And the message size as well. Then you can apply different policies there. You can generate the incident report when a particular condition triggers it. You can require TLS encryption. You can put the message in quarantine mailbox or use a given connector. And there was a session on the previous one, if you haven't seen it yet, on how to configure connectors. You can watch it in recording delivered by Kushu Irani. And finally, there are additional options. You can enable your policies in the test mode, just to see what would be impact of that particular policy. You can do it in a certain time period. And what's interesting, depending on the message or on the conditions triggered, you could apply whether to enforce RMS encryption or whether to enforce Office 365 message encryption. We refer to it as OME. And there is a session at 1:30, deep dive today, into how to do this encryption capabilities. But depending on when certain criteria trigger your policy, you can enforce encryption of those messages. Now, on data loss prevention, we do provide data loss capabilities in our solution. And you can say the rest of the industry has been doing it for a while as well, so how is this different? The fundamental difference in our approach that I see versus the rest of the industry in data loss prevention is we are striving to empower end users before enforcing these rules. Without end user education, or right when they're working on something, whether it's email or Excel, if they send a mail without being warned that they are not compliant with your corporate policy, it's going to be a confusing experience for them when their mail is stopped based on some data loss prevention rules, because they don't know what they did. It's like typing the password and giving the message when you create a password that your password is not strong enough, but you don't tell them what to do to make it strong. They don't know whether they need to add a character or asterisk or whatever. Similar thing here. When the message is stopped, we believe that it is most important thing, or will be stopped, to educate them at the time before they attempt this operation. So that when they compile a message that contains social security numbers or credit card numbers, we want to inform them right there, right in the environment where they're typing that message. And that capability was in the product for the last at least 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. But what we do right now with data loss prevention, we're expanding these capabilities broader to cover SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, as well as to educate the users right in the native environment of Office applications, whether it's in Excel or Word or PowerPoint. If a person is editing Excel, they would be warned if the information they're putting there are not supposed to be shared. So that's our view on data loss prevention. I did mention earlier the Common Management Console, but we are an integral part of Office 365, and the admin that you see is very native and intuitive. Well, I wouldn't say intuitive, but very native and very aligned with Office 365 admin capabilities, as well as with Exchange Admin Console. We do provide fairly granular reporting, and the aspect that I like there is that we allow drill down into the details of your reports. I don't have enough time to go into the demo of the reports here, but we provide different levels of reporting in our reporting console. We provide the aggregate reports, and then we allow you to drill into those reports right in that environment. So for example, if you look at the level of malware going through your system, you can click on a particular peak of your concern, and then you will see every individual message that was sent in that particular time frame that you're interested in. And you'll get all the details about who sent mail to who that was qualified as malware. And that often helps our administrators to determine compromised users even before they know that. This slide here is to illustrate that this area of Exchange Online protection is a very, very strategic area for us. This is not a dormant product. This is an area where we are very heavily investing. And this year alone, in the last, 4 months, we delivered safe attachments that I showed you. We delivered safe links. We enabled support for DKIM and DMARC that helps protecting the known brands against spoofing. We strengthened the anti-bulk protection that I talked about earlier with better granularity on which bulk messages to stop. We did the URL tracing that I got the applause for. Thank you. And in the next couple of weeks, few weeks, you're going to see new ability in Exchange Online protection to send you scheduled reports. That was also a very interesting learning for me. When we shipped Exchange Online protection, we enabled reports on demand. And I thought that's the best thing that administrators would want. They want to see the most latest and greatest report rather than scheduled coming every Monday. And then people told me, they said, yeah, not so much. I said, why? So we need this weekly or monthly report to send it to our CIO to brag and say, look how much malware or spam was stopped. That was puzzling scenario for me, but I heard so much demand for that we enabled this feature, and you will see it soon. We also heard from administrators that you guys providing the tenant-wide reports, we want on per domain basis. So those capabilities will be enabled soon as well. At first, the domain-specific scoping will be available first through PowerShell, not through UI first. I promised you to show where we have the data centers. And this is today, but you can see the trend. We started delivering the services with data centers in North America, in Europe, and in Asia Pacific, with data centers in Singapore and Hong Kong. We have an internal effort that we call Go Local to bring data centers to the regions that have high demand for data residency in their regions. We recently, in the last few months, we launched our presence in Japan, and we launched presence in Australia. And there is also a separate instance of Office 365 available in mainland China, in People's Republic of China. So you can see this trend. But I don't think there is anybody on the planet right now, I could be wrong, but I haven't seen anybody who's providing this guarantee of geo-affinity with so many different locations. And in summary, what we do is we provide protection against anti-spam and anti-malware. We protect the sensitive data for on-premise environments as well as for Office 365 mailboxes. If you are not ready yet to move your mailboxes to Office 365, this could be a good stepping stone to test the waters of Office 365 with using one of the services, but not necessarily moving your mailboxes yet until the right time comes. I do want to leave you with a reminder, must be somewhere there, yeah, next slide, reminder to do the evaluation of session. But I do want you to take advantage of these sessions that are coming after me, pretty much here, that provide more drill down into the area of security, with encryption here, the data loss prevention. I don't know who put this 3:15 a.m. I'm sure that's a mistake. And the other talks in the compliance area. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to use mics or approach me. It's your preference and call.
Really easy question.
Sure.
Do you know what costs are for this per user?
Advanced.
For the ATP?
Oh, that's a great question. The question was, what's the cost for advanced threat protection per user? This is extremely expensive on our side, on Cox side feature, and that's why it comes with additional cost. And I think it comes with a cost of $2 per user per month. I think there is some special category, I don't remember which one, that goes to $1.75. But I'm sure if you're a large organization, please work with your Microsoft counterpart, TAM, to figure out what the licensing structure is and how to subscribe to those. What I hear from marketing is that this is the most competitive rate in the industry anyway. So, but it's, yeah, please work with your account teams. Yes, please.
Would there be a website that you could recommend if our clients are reporting that we are or Office 365 is blocking email from their domains? Yeah, because right now with Cisco Ironport, you can use senderbase.org and you can look up if a domain has a poor reputation, and we could tell our business partners, hey, you need to work with your ISP. But I don't know if Exchange Online has a website like that I could look up if a domain has been blocked by Microsoft.
That's an interesting question. There are two different angles there. So I don't need to repeat the question. You all heard the question. How do we inform users when some domain is blocked? So if it is for inbound the mail, when some third party is sending mail to you, and they cannot send the mail, if we block that, we're using different third-party feeds, and in addition to doing it ourselves. So if we block you based on our own knowledge, then we will advertise that you're blocked and we will provide you steps to go and recover. It exists already. If it is one of the lists that we're getting from third parties, because I'll be the first one to say our strategy is not try to boil the ocean ourselves. We are leveraging, like with antivirus engines, the third parties, etc. We are getting streams from third parties to strengthen our protection. If it comes an IP address from a third party, then we would redirect them to go and talk to those third parties. But we will not be able to delist those IP addresses. Does it make sense? So if somebody is sending the mail to us through a blacklisted IP address that is blacklisted by a third party that is maintaining the reputation of those IP addresses, and we're getting the stream, we will redirect the sender to go to work with that, and we use only reputable third parties, to go and remove them from that list. Now, I do want to build on that question to cover additional scenario. Imagine that one of your users' mailboxes is compromised, and your users start sending a bunch of spam. We're going to block that, because those users are going to compromise reputation of our own IP addresses and put in jeopardy all of you. So we have very sophisticated system monitoring for those outbound spams, because those happen, believe it or not. When you have tens of millions of active users, some of them get compromised. But what we do is we block them, and we send notification to you so that you can go as administrators and clean up their mailboxes and fix the situation, and then we will remove that block.
So if our business partners get blocked and
Yes.
I get a message header and it says, hey, Exchange Online is blocking them, how do I mean, we're not a big fan of whitelisting because that is a very dangerous
Sure.
thing to do. So what is the recommended step for us?
I'm trying to remember right now which side. Say again? MX Toolbox?
But in general, Levon, when one of your business partners gets blocked, they should receive an NDR, because we will tell them no. And they will receive an NDR, and that NDR Levon was talking about will have instructions of which site to go to unblock them.
Does NDR
Yes,
include
it
that?
should.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Kush. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks. Oh, in demo? Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So the ask is to repeat the demo and block URL. So I'll go back to my demo machine. Yes. Yes. We're targeting June 1st as direct sale, and VL volume licensing will come, I'm trying to remember, either in July or August. So it's going to. It's not. It's not released. Oh, no. It's in private preview. We have a few dozen of customers who are working with it right now, who are testing. It hasn't been released. But I'll show you for the future. You come here to Exchange Admin Center, and then you go to Advanced Threats. And this is where you configure your safe links for URL and safe attachments for zero-day attacks. Okay.
You say it's going to be additional as far as the license is concerned?
Yes, it's going to be additional cost. It's not included in any SKUs. Yeah.
Is it due on June, you say?
The direct sale is targeting June 1st. Yes. Yeah.
In the SafeLink section, it would be nice to add a blocked domain for us, because occasionally the help desk will send out an email to all of our users saying, hey, if you get this email, don't click this link. And then a lot of the users will go ahead and click the link. So if we could actually blacklist whatever that URL is in this page, that way that everyone that would click it could get blocked in turn.
I hear you. I think it's, there are two different aspects. But what I hear you saying, let me just play back and make sure I understood. You're saying empower me, administrator, to block my users from clicking on particular links.
Yep.
So if you do not have this ATP capability, I still want to enable that scenario, but I will be able to enable it at the time of filtering. We don't provide easy way to do it, so you still can accomplish it today through exchange transport rules to block the messages containing particular URL. But we are striving, it's in works right now, I'm not committing timeline yet, but it is in our backlog to enable administrators to provide allow and block URL lists. Now, have said that, I think it's an interesting capability to add it here as well, because here we will do it at time of click rather than at time of filtering.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Do partner connectors bypass any of the spam filtering or the reputation scoring, or so you have
no.
an inbound partner connection? It's
So if partner connection brings the mail to us, the mail still will go through our filtering pipe, but you can enforce certain rules in exchange transport rule to bypass them. But as you remember, exchange transport rules will kick in after the age protection and after malware traditional AV
but
signatures.
before the
But
content film.
before the content filtering, yes. Yeah.
Any news on availability on any of the education plans for this?
On education plans.
Yeah, on any of the E1 plans, E1, E2.
Can you elaborate?
When will education customers be able to buy it?
I can take this one.
Okay.
So we don't have any plans right now, but we are evaluating those options currently. But
Okay.
not as
Yeah,
of-
I have a blank check, so evaluate them. My
to know.
second question is, we're seeing a lot of instances where we're having compromised exchange accounts, and then, you know, the level of sophistication from the viruses then are going out, looking at everything in the gal. So we're having a lot of email that's staying inside of Exchange and never making it outbound. Is there any plans to be able to filter messages inside of Exchange itself?
The plan would be still to use the Exchange Online Protection. You can configure to route through the
Route back out,
cloud
yeah.
service, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're asking, is there a plan to evolve the deprecated old version of on-premise forefront
Yeah.
technology? No.
Yeah,
No.
and that's our biggest problem. And obviously, some of that is people clicking on bad links. So
Right.
if we cut that off at the pass, we'll reduce the number. But
Yeah.
we've got a decent number per week of folks that, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
are getting their machines compromised, and then it's fair game on Turnal. We'll
Yes,
go back
I
and
hear
delete
you.
those.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Our observation is that the industry overall is moving to filtering through the cloud, and where you see most of the investments, not only from our side, but across the industry. So that's the direction we expect to go. But the recommendation here would be filter through the cloud.
Okay.
And if there are gotchas where you think even that doesn't help, I'd be happy to have beer or coffee to learn. Yeah.
Awesome.
All
Thanks.
right, thanks.
We back here.
Uh-huh.
We moved from FOPI to EOP and seen an increased amount of phishing attacks. Anything that we can do? We had to create explicit transport rules to block those.
Yes.
Anything that we can do to help prevent that or help?
We are investing on that area alone. I don't know what you can do specifically, except for being more strict on SPF rules. And when the phishing is using the well-known brands, except having those brand owners to be more strict on their DKIM and DMARC protection. But we internally are aware of this increased threats in the phishing space, and we do that. We do targeted investments to protect that. I can't think right now of I can't think off the top of my head of what you could do in addition to protect against phishing. But I can direct you to a session where I'll have more experts from the team today at today's what, 6? At 5 o'clock. Deep dive into how Microsoft handles spam and advanced email threats. Okay. We will be able to drill more down there with the experts, and I'll think more about it as well.
Then second one, I had a generic one. Our IT security team has us blocking our domain name from allowing anybody externally to send in in addition to our SPF record, and to avoid spoofing. The problem that we have is we're using more and more SaaS vendors that are sending on our behalf, and because a lot of these SaaS vendors are tenant-based, doing transport rules to allow IP ranges to come through is kind of a concern for them, just because somebody that's hosted on that tenant could potentially send spam to or phishing attacks to her. Is there anything to find a fine balance between? I mean, because this is a management nightmare for us as the business continues to use SaaS vendors, shadow IT and things, without notifying us, and so we get blocked emails coming in all the time. Is that a huge threat? That's something that our security team is overly cautious about that isn't required, or is that something basically
Preventing others from sending on your behalf? Or?
Well, short of adding all our SaaS vendors to our SPF record, we're blocking the domain from allowing external vendors to send into our environment.
No, I think it's, I do support the investments where you prevent the third parties, non-authorized third parties from sending on your behalf.
Sure.
Because we do see increased attacks when a third-party attacker is trying to impersonate one member of your team to send mail to another member of your team. Mm-hmm. And then the social engineering kicks in. When you receive a mail from boss's boss, says approve this,
Exactly.
you feel obliged to do so.
Yeah.
So it's a valid concern. And
Okay, but for those, so as we whitelist or allow blocks of IP from Salesforce or SurveyMonkey or whatever it might be, or email marketing campaigns, is there a huge risk of anybody that's hosted on that sending us? Because now we're allowing anybody from those platforms to allow into our environment, right?
correct. Then I'm thinking, DKIM probably would help there. But we'll need to drill more into that. I think it requires double click. We'll have to take it offline.
Okay.
It's a fairly sophisticated question. You can,
We do that too if there's a common from address, but the problem is we use like success factors or other things where they get sent on behalf of the user or the manager, so pretty much that's everybody in our company. And so how do you find the right balance to allow you're essentially allowing everybody on that range to go through anyway.
So what level of DKIM support do you actually have, and are you doing DMARC yet?
yes, we support DKIM for inbound messages and DMARC as well. When you say what level do you have in mind?
Well, what I mean is DMARC is both sender and receiver, has different parts of that specification.
DKIM as sender and receiver, you're saying? We do.
DMARC, as a sender, right, you create your records and say, I want to consume these reports. Are you consuming reports yet?
The owners of the DMARC record, those who enable DMARC for their brands, are consuming reports. I'm not catching up on in which scenario we will be consuming the reports.
Well, the reporting is via a ARF, MARF message, and so presumably they're up to engaging a third party to ultimately report on that.
Correct. Yes, we are not providing those reports. Yes, if that's your question, we depend on, you would be using third parties for that.
Right, and for those companies that are doing the bulk mailing type stuff and the guerrilla IT, the best thing to do is to implement DKIM in addition to your SPF and make sure that you actually are generating a selector for that particular sender so that you can actually revoke that sender when you want to.
I'd love to follow up on that to better understand your suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. If you can catch.
I'll be talking about this subject at the Cisco booth if you want to come by at
Okay, which
2:30 today.
Which booth?
Cisco's booth at
Okay.
2:30.
All right, sounds good, thank you.
So EOP introduced a new blocking method earlier this year.
Yes.
So if it's a new IP out there and there's no reputation on that IP, then Microsoft's default stance is we're going to block you, allow you to attempt to connect again, and if you build up a good reputation, then you're allowed in.
Yep.
You're good. we had a scenario where we're in a hybrid with Office 365. We changed our public IP, and then we got blocked because we sent thousands of messages back and forth between on-prem and the cloud, and there was nothing we could do about it. We took to the controls in the Office 365 tenant, whitelisting ourselves there, listing our new IP there, did nothing. We called into Premier.
And you had the properly connected, configured connectors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We called into Premier. It was late at night.
Yes.
Went into 4 a.m., probably trying to reach out to you or one of the other project managers to get approval to put us onto the whitelist.
Yes.
And it just took a very long time. We had to back out our changes.
I'd love to drill more to see what we can do there. May I have your card so that I'll...
I don't have it.
Okay, I'll write it down. Yeah, cool. Because let me be clear on that question. We do not want to start receiving tons of IP addresses, tons of mails from unknown IP addresses with no previous reputation of sending mail, because in 99+% of cases, these are bad guys trying to send us mail. But if it is our customer who is trying to send the mail from in a hybrid environment from on-premise to the cloud, of course we want to allow that mail to go through. So if you're saying that the system doesn't account for that scenario today, I'm happy to take it back home and to make sure that it's working, because the scenario is definitely legit and we'll support it.